right, you have got the chairperson for Limpopo, Hosi Dikhale, and then Hosi Mabe on the other side. From the northwest, sorry, from Free State, sorry, and no, because Mabe is Free State, is northwest, and then of course Moroka, Oshadi Moroka from the Free State. Now, we had come to just confer with the members of the National House on the topical issue around the proposal for expropriation of land without compensation, and we wanted just to have a feedback from the meeting of the National House, which was 2 weeks ago. Cabinet discussed the matter and felt that it was important for Cabinet members to come and connect on behalf of Cabinet on this issue, and in particular, it was important for us to also clarify what has come out in the public discourse, that the issue of expropriation without compensation basically refers to what was historically known as the 87% of the land, and it does not involve the land which is within the area of traditional leaders, on the understanding that that is the land where the majority of our people are occupying, and that the focus was on the issue of land reform as it will relate to the rest of the land, that the process for expropriation has been initiated in Parliament. It's also important for us to indicate that whilst that process has been going on in Parliament, we needed to confer with the traditional leaders to see what support we can offer as they might need to make their own presentations or representations to the parliamentary process, wherein at the moment a number of consultative processes are going on out in the various communities. We have therefore clarified the issue that the expropriation of land without compensation will not involve the land under traditional leadership, and that the processes that are going on in relation to this issue of expropriation of land without compensation, all South Africans are expected to participate, including traditional leaders and all South Africans, because the issue of land reform and the return of land is a very, very important issue, and it's always been part of the issues that the traditional leaders have raised. Further to that issue, the traditional leaders have raised the question of the security of tenure in the area under traditional leadership. They have raised a proposal that government should be issuing title deeds to the traditional leadership, and of course that matter has not been finalized because there's a whole lot of other issues that are involved in the matter of ensuring security of tenure on behalf of those who are residents in this particular area, ensuring that the people are able to utilize the land as they have customary rights to the land, but that in that process any form of exploitation or abuse of the tenure rights should be avoided, so people need to be also protected. So a number of issues need to be discussed here in terms of whether title deeds will be the best, or leasehold, or PTOs. What is the form of land tenure that needs to be reflected or represented here? It is also important to raise the issues that were raised by the traditional leaders, that we might be looking at a system that will also ensure that investments are possible, that the banks accept the nature of the land tenure that would be ultimately agreed upon. We have then agreed amongst ourselves that we will work with the traditional leadership institutions to refine the research that is needed, so that the correct form of land tenure is achieved for all the people under the areas, in those areas of traditional leadership, and that there is a degree of frustration from the traditional leaders, because this matter has been raised over a while, and that they needed an assurance that that process will go on and will not be delayed by the fact that there is this other process of expropriation of land without compensation, which is still going to go through the parliamentary process. So with that, we have agreed that we will table these issues to Cabinet in particular, but that we do not foresee that the two processes must actually be delayed by the fact that there is a parliamentary process on the other side, whereas this other process is something that needs to be worked on with the departments and the government to refine it. We have therefore agreed that there will be there's a need for a land summit to be convened so that a number of proposals that have come from traditional leaders can be tabled, and we have agreed that there will be a team that's going to work between the National House of Traditional Leaders and the various departments to take this matter forward. We have also reported to the members of the National House that the President, because of the urgency of this matter, has set up an interministerial team which is led by the Deputy President, and there's about 10 departments which are part of it, and these departments will look at all the issues around land reform issues of security of tenure, and the issues of agrarian reform, and a whole manner of issues that will be about the implementation of land expropriation without compensation. All of these processes are new processes that are going to be unfolding in the next few months, as it were. This task team, therefore, will go and report to that particular interministerial committee, as well as report to Cabinet. Whilst, of course, the issues were largely about the issues of land, a number of other issues have been raised by the members of the National House of Traditional Leaders, in particular issues that relate to the powers, roles and functions of traditional leaders. The National House had discussed this issue, raised it with the President, and that there has been a call for by the traditional leaders for the amendment to Section 7, Chapter 7 and Chapter 12 of the Constitution, and we have had quite a thorough discussion on the matter, because we had, as the Department of Traditional Affairs, undertaken a process wherein we'll take all those proposals and prepare submissions for that matter to be taken forward. The members of the House have also indicated that that team that will look into this matter might need to look at whether the approach should be made directly to Parliament or not. Now, as we know, this is a whole democratic process. This issue is going to be further reported upon in our normal quarterly meeting with the National House of Traditional Leaders, where the progress on the issue of the land tenure, how far things are on that matter, and the issue of title deeds or different issues around tenure, we'll need to discuss that and report about that. And then secondly, there will also be a report on all the issues in relation to the progress on the proposals around the powers of traditional leaders and the proposal from traditional leaders for the amendment of the Constitution. Obviously, there's a lot of consultations that's going to be needed in that process, and so we're just indicating that that matter has been put on the table quite firmly. There are other issues that have been a source of frustration that has been raised by traditional leaders. Amongst those is the issues of various provisions in terms of the land rights, so the areas around the involvement of traditional areas in areas where there's economic investment or economic development issues. Those issues will continue to be discussed amongst us, and there's also issues around the legislation on land land utilization or land management and planning, SPLUMA. And again, that issue has been raised again with the traditional leaders, as it were. So all of these were some of the issues that were to look at. And so we have therefore agreed to continue working together to resolve those issues, and that between the Department of Traditional Affairs and the National House of Traditional Leaders, as well as the provincial houses, we will be looking into those particular matters. A matter that was raised here as well was around the concern of traditional leaders in relation to statements that have been out in the media, the particular statement that came from the leader of the high-level panel. That statement was seen as very uncomfortable to the traditional leaders. We have said then, of course, that did not reflect the position of cabinet or the department or the president, and therefore, it's a matter that arose in a platform of the ruling party, but that it did not reflect the views of either the ruling party or government, as it were. We've clarified that issue, but we will take all of these matters up for reporting to cabinet. I think maybe because we've got our colleagues who are here, they could also make whatever additional issues that we will need, that we might have left out. Let me leave it at that, just to say that we are agreeing that we need to expedite our report back session so that we would then be able to enable the traditional leadership to go and discuss those responses with the rest of the traditional leaders in the form of a coalition of traditional leaders meeting, which they are hoping to convene very soon. So we will be working together very closely in the build-up towards the land summit, and that we're still going to have a team that's going to refine who will attend and what are the specific issues in terms of the framework of such a summit. We will then be working together. But in the process, we do have, excuse me. In the process, we've got already the submissions that are going to have to be processed for purposes of input at that level. Maybe I could just ask if Nkosi Mahlangu might want to make any comments and any additions, and then the other colleagues will also take it from there and make our and answer the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for the background that you've given, and let me also greet the media that is before us. I think we need to state that as the sector, this meeting came about the Lekgotla that we had last week in Durban, where traditional leaders, all executive committees of provincial houses led by their chairpersons and Contralesa and other structures met in Durban, where we wanted to come up with one voice when we deal with this issue of land. So this meeting in the main was to abreast cabinet or the cabinet committee on the resolutions that we took in that meeting, and also come up with a process of how to now implement what we had agreed on. I think what was key in those agreements is that the 13% of the land that is in traditional areas' hands, where 80% of our communities are residing, that land should not be touched when we come to the issue of expropriation, because that land belongs to the people and traditional leaders that are living in those areas. So if you would want to expropriate that land, who would you be expropriating it from, and you'd be expropriating it for who, for whose benefit, because that community is already residing in those areas. And two, we also resolved that the communal tenure system that we have in traditional communities. I think it is still a relevant tenure system. We just have to find a way of how do we strengthen that tenure system and make sure that our banking system views that tenure system as a tenure system that our African communities are happy with. And it should not be viewed as a tradable commodity, the tenure system that we are talking about, but it should be securing the rights of our own communities to be able to make a living out of those, out of that tenure system. And 2 and 3, we also said that the issue of title deeds, I think as it has been peddled by many experts and speakers and all those, is that we think that title deeds are the panacea to all our problems in the country. That's not how we see them. We believe that the issue of title deeds has not been properly explained to our communities. The responsibilities that go with title deeds have not been explained to our communities as well. So I think there has to be a more broader engagement on that issue. But the system that we believe in as traditional leaders is a system that we've always used, of which is the permission to occupy. But we are saying those PTOs must be strengthened so that they give a more wider right to those communities that are living in our rural areas. On the issue of SPLUMA, we said that I think this interministerial committee should also look into the issue of suspending SPLUMA as traditional leaders. And because there are issues that we have, we are uncomfortable with SPLUMA. It removes the institution of traditional leaders as the center of land administration in rural areas. So we are saying that SPLUMA in our areas should not be implemented. And in this meeting it transpired that SPLUMA is an issue for other departments as well. We are not the only ones that have concerns around the issue of SPLUMA, but we believe that planning should be key in everything that we do, even in traditional communities. But we need to find a way of how do we plan together and not find one structure that plans for us in terms of what development ought to happen in those traditional communities. I think in the main, those are the issues that were pertinent. We've discussed the process of how do we take this forward. There are committees that have been set up, even in this interministerial committee that has been set up by the President. We've also proposed that the institution must also have representation within that committee to be able to express the views of the institution and to make sure that we are able to come up with resolutions that are going to cover all of us. That we do not do the same mistake that we did with the panel of experts, where the sector was not represented within that panel, and of which it is a panel that has brought so much tension between us and government. So we've all agreed that we need to work together when we deal with this issue of land. I think this is our government, and the sector is part of government. So we can't be talking in tongues when it comes to the issue of land. We need to give leadership as government and traditional leaders to make sure that our people get one message, and that message is we need to bring back the 87% of the land that is in other people's hands, and make sure that traditional communities and people and African people at large are the beneficiaries of the land that belongs to them. I think that's what is key in this meeting. Thanks.
Well, Honorable Minister Mkhize and Zokwana, the Chair of the National House and Provincial Houses, and all Maosis in the room, media, I don't have to repeat what Minister Mkhize had already outlined. Minister Mkhize coordinates our relationship as we deal with issues of land reform and rural development with the traditional leadership. That's why we are here and led by him today. Amongst the other issues that I've raised earlier on, raised by Nkosi Mahlangu and Minister Mkhize, and the debate we have been having since this morning. As for us, from where we come from, development, it's about our people. Our people as enshrined in the Freedom Charter and in the Constitution. But with the proviso that we remember that that which we have today as a government was also through the contribution of the traditional leaders in 1912. What challenges do we have and are we all facing today is poverty, unemployment, and inequality. So it's a call to all South Africans to say, as we engage in this process of the Section 25 of the Constitution, we have been listening and will continue to listen because it's a process led by Parliament. But at the center of it is how do we make sure that that which has been a problem, of that which President refers to as the original sin, land tenure, the historical disposition, and how we develop our rural areas so that people mustn't be coming to Johannesburg because they're chasing development, but that development is everywhere else where they live, because that's what freedom is about. But today here, we are here to say that yes, we participated in the meeting of the Lekgotla of the Traditional Leadership in Durban 2 weeks ago. Yes, Minister Mkhize has referred to how we had reported yesterday and the formation of this committee that it referred to. We are about development of our people, be it urban or rural. And the Constitution informs us of what we should be doing, but it has never said we should ignore our traditional leadership. So we are here to listen. We are here to support the initiative of the minister. We listen to all the sectors. I'm talking about where I come from, land reform and rural development. We listen and we are supposed to quicken our steps and be responsive to the unemployment that we see, working together with all other departments that are in cabinet, but also in this committee that was formed yesterday. Minister Zokwan, I'm sure through you, Chair, will speak to the other issues. Thank you.
No, thanks. There's not much to say because Minister Mkhize has covered broader our discussions. But just to say that we need to deal with food insecurity and access to food. Access to land, in my view, means that people will be able now to be assisted by government and Amahosh to make sure that no land lies idle where food can be produced. And that will be coordinated led by Minister Mkhize, and also the kings and chiefs will participate. Our oceans as well as our forests can be utilized for food security. And I'm sure together we'll be able to change the landscape in rural areas and make young people proud to be in those areas, provided they can find a space where they can play a role. This, to me, presents another opportunity where we can debate land issues, but also the usability of depending on what that land is suitable for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Principals. We are going to take a few questions, 6 rounds of questions now, and then from there later, another 6 and we are done. Minister?
Can I just deal with one issue which, whilst it's important, it was not directly referred to, and that's the issue of the Ngonyama Trust Board. Just to say 2 things about it. Firstly, that the Ngonyama Trust Board, as we all know, is created through government legislation. The first aspect of it refers to the fact that the large measure of the land under the Ngonyama Trust is the same land that we're discussing here in relation to part of the 13%, and therefore issues that relate to Ngonyama insofar as the issues of land tenure and so on would basically be the same as what we've just referred to here. The second aspect of the issue of Ngonyama refers to some of the issues that are raised, which I would say largely are administrative issues that might need to be given attention. And insofar as those issues would be concerned, there are processes within the province and then, of course, within the relevant departments that would take care of the issues that are raised at that level. So I think it's important just to indicate to you that when it comes to the issues of Ngonyama Trust land, a lot of the issues get addressed when we deal with the issues of land tenure ultimately, and the rest of the other issues are issues that need to be dealt with within the administrative process. I'm just raising that because in my previous history, I do know that between Ngonyama Trust Board and the province of KwaZulu-Natal, issues that would arise would be discussed at that kind of level, and if need be, that they obviously need to involve some of the national departments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are going to please indicate who you are and the media house you represent. 6 questions for now. Just try to use the mic in front of you.
My name is Baldwin Dava from Pretoria News. I just want to find out what is the message that you'll be expecting the president to give King's Wellington tomorrow? Is that land under him is not affected?
Okay.
I'm Cindy Watwala from Accra Worldview. My main question is about the traditional leaders and the amendment of, or the request for the amendment of certain sections in the Constitution. You cited section 12 about that. What exactly would you like, or what exactly do they want to be gotten from that? What powers exactly do they want?